Good evening. This meeting of your Pontiac City Council is hereby called to order at 6:01 p.m. We give the floor to Councilman Parker to introduce this evening's invocation.
Thank you, President McGinnis, and good afternoon, everyone. I pray that everyone had a very nice 4th of July holiday. This evening, we will have our invocation given us by Minister Veronica Taylor of the New Springfield Missionary Baptist Church.
Good evening, Council. First, I honor God, who's the head of my life. I would like to thank you all and to bow your heads and let's pray. Father God, as I come humble as I know how, I'm asking you to continue to bless this country and continue to do your work, not our work, your work. And continue to bless this council right here and this mayor right here and all of these people in this city that's trying to come together as one. Let's take out the racialness and just be people in this world. Amen.
All right, let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And for the moment of silence, you could be seated. I just want to very briefly, it's not somebody in the community, but I know a lot of us, it weighed heavy on us, the news that Winter Cole Smith, the 2-year-old who was kidnapped, whose body was indeed found deceased in Detroit. So not in our community, but definitely weighing on all of us. Let's have a moment of silence for that beautiful departed child. Thank you. With that, roll call, Clerk Doyle.
Carrington. Present. Goodman.
Present.
James.
Here.
McGinnis.
Present.
Nicholson.
Here.
Parker.
Here.
Rutherford. Mr. President, you have a quorum.
All right. With that, quorum being established, is there a motion to excuse Councilwoman Melanie Rutherford for personal reasons?
Moved by Carrington.
Support.
It's been moved by Pro Tem Carrington, seconded by Councilman Goodman, that we excuse Councilwoman Rutherford from this evening's council meeting for personal reasons. She is in North Carolina helping her daughter get situated for law school for North Carolina Central, where Mariah will be starting. And we also send our condolences to the Rutherford family and Melanie, our council and our council colleague, on the loss of her godmother, Ms. Lily Alexander, a big loss for the Pontiac community. Roll call on the motion to excuse Councilwoman Rutherford for personal reasons. Clerk Doyle.
Carrington. Yes. Goodman.
Yes.
James.
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Nicholson.
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
6 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. Is there a motion to approve this evening's agenda?
Moved by Carrington. Support by Carrington.
Moved by Councilman Parker, I believe it was, seconded by Pro Tem Carrington. The motion before us now is the approval of this evening's agenda.
I'd like to make an amendment.
What you got?
I'd like to add a discussion item about unregistered properties and bad tenant conditions in the city.
All right. Unregistered rental properties?
Yes,
Okay, unregistered rental.
and their conditions.
And their conditions. Moved by Councilman Goodman, seconded by Councilman Nicholson. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, roll call, Clerk Doyle on approval.
James.
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Nicholson.
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
Carrington.
Yes.
Goodman.
Yes.
6 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. The agenda is hereby amended accordingly. Then we're back to the main motion of the agenda. Any further discussion, changes, corrections? Hearing nothing further, roll call on adoption of the agenda as amended. Clerk Doyle.
Goodman,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Nicholson,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Carrington.
Yes.
6 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. On the agenda is adopted. We'll proceed accordingly. Is there a motion to approve this evening's consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Support.
Moved by Councilman Parker, seconded by Councilman Nicholson. It's got the most recent Parks, Recreation, Public Works Subcommittee meeting minutes, the June 27th City Council meeting minutes, resolution approving the updated fireworks permit for the rain date of July 15th for the Paramo fireworks, a resolution approving contract with ACP Entertainment for festival services for the Pontiac Family Fun Night, resolution approving the updated fireworks permit for the rain date of July 16th for the M1 Concourse fireworks, resolution approving the contract for the quarterly newsletter printing and mailing postage expenses, and resolution for general liability and property insurance policy. With that, roll call and adoption of the consent agenda. Clerk Doyle.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Nicholson,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Carrington,
Yes.
Goodman,
Yes.
James.
Yes.
6 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. The consent agenda is approved. We are at our special presentation this evening. For many Pontiac residents and employees here at City Hall, it will not be news to you that a very major funding decision has been made by the state of Michigan. Our state representative Brenda Carter is with us this evening. State Senator Jeremy Moss had planned to come, but indicated that he will be coming at a future meeting. So we give the floor now to State Representative Brenda Carter to offer her reflections as we await the signing of the state budget, which she and her legislative colleagues have adopted with historic funding for the city of Pontiac. And you want to make the microphone come alive at the bottom.
Thank you so much, City Council President Mike McGinnis. I'm holding up to see what we need to do. Thank you. This is new. I like this. Good evening, City Council President Pro Tem, City Council, to our Deputy Mayor, to everyone here in the audience. I appreciate this opportunity to reflect on what happened in Lansing. Everyone should know that this has been a historic year for bills and things that concern us. You know, we passed background checks, we passed safe storage laws, we passed prevailing wage. We did a lot of things in Lansing, and that was because we worked together as a team, moving across values that really concerns us, okay? And one of the things that we wanted to make sure of is that when we did the budget this year, and I have to give all respect, all congratulatory comments to the Speaker of the House, Joe Tate, because he was focused in the House of Representatives, and he was going to do everything that was necessary to make sure that every single community in the state of Michigan, whether we were in the Lower Peninsula or the Upper Peninsula, had the funding that they need. When it came to Pontiac, we got calls. My office got flooded with calls, actually, thanks to City Council President Mike McGinnis and the Mayor Tim Greimel. We got flooded with calls because we needed to get the Martin Luther King Bridge fixed. That bridge is instrumental to the, thank you, thank you, I appreciate that. That bridge is instrumental because not only does it connect United Wholesale Mortgage to Woodward Avenue, but it connects the east side of Pontiac to St. Joseph Hospital. So living and being a resident of the city of Pontiac for over 26 years, I knew how important it was to hear the cry of our city council president and our mayor to get that bridge done. But what we don't know, and I'm here to tell this story, is the ultimatum that we were given. We were given a choice. Both Senator Moss and I want to stop and say, this was a collaboration between Congresswoman Haley Stevens, Senator Jeremy Moss, and myself. We all worked on trying to get the bridge fixed, and then the economic development, which will revitalize downtown Pontiac. You need to know that. But we were given a choice in Mackinac, either the bridge or either the downtown development, one or the other. And I weighed it out. And I said, yes, I can see the jobs that we bring here. I can see the support that we can bring to small businesses. I can see the revitalization of Pontiac. I can see that. But that bridge needed to be fixed, okay? So when it came to me, when I went back to Speaker Joe Tate, and I give him all the credit in the world, Speaker Joe Tate, Representative Ranjit Puri, Representative Will Snyder, and Representative Angela Whitwer. I called their names, and I'm calling them tonight because we were given a choice. And when I went into the Speaker's office to lobby for which one I wanted, I said, I have to have them both. I can't choose between one or the other because each of them are important to my community.
Awesome.
Well, as the budget was being done, I was notified by the names that I called that Pontiac got them both. They got them both. And I am so pleased. And this is what you need to know. Yes, Senator Moss is a champion for Pontiac, and he did work hard for the economic development down in Pontiac. He was given a choice, okay, either or. And Congresswoman Haley Stevens worked hard. She tried to get the money in Congress to fix the bridge, and that money still may be coming. But what Pontiac needs to know, and hear from my voice right now, that the Martin Luther King Bridge came from the House of Representatives.
All right.
Solely. That means Speaker Joe Tate and his leadership heard the cry of what it meant to this community to have that bridge fixed, and solely appropriated those fundings, that $10 million, from the House of Representatives only. So when the story's being told of how the money got to Pontiac, the $70 million, I'm going to tell you how it's going to be done, and you can fact check this. The Martin Luther King Bridge came from the House of Representatives. Pontiac only has one representative in the House. Figure that out, okay? The $55 million that came to the downtown development was a collaboration between Senator Jeremy Moss and myself. You need to know, Pontiac, that if Jeremy had voted no in the Senate, it was dead. If I had voted no in the House, it was dead. But because Jeremy and I worked together, $55 million is coming to downtown Pontiac, and I think that's worth applause, even if you just give it to Jeremy. So all I'm saying to you, with this budget and this city, that you got representatives up in Lansing, legislators up in Lansing, that care deeply what happens in this community. And there's not one hero in this story. It's three. Congresswoman Haley Stevens, Senator Jeremy Moss, and somebody that lives in Pontiac. That's right. Thank you. So with that, Mr. President, I appreciate this opportunity to set the record straight. And with that, I got to go to Lansing. I'll talk to you guys soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments from
Any
councilmen?
questions or comments?
Pro Tem Carrington?
Yes, thank you, President. I'd just like to just give you and Senator Moss a very great thanks for the work that you've done for the city of Pontiac. So we definitely appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Pro Tem Carrington.
Councilman Nicholson?
I want to make sure that the residents also understand the $5 million that's going to help the city be able to settle debts to our debt service with the Phoenix Center settlement agreement. That puts $1 million back in our operating budget every year. The seller financed interest rate, we could have been paying this for years and years and years, but to be able to satisfy that debt, and not have to worry about that debt service, it's a tremendous success for everybody in this region. It's going to really, it's game changing. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Nicholson. And one other thing I want to bring to attention, since we have two former school board members on the council now. The $18 million that's going to wipe out the debt that Pontiac School District owes to the state of Michigan is going to be in a supplemental, hopefully passed this September. So once again, this is your legislators working hard for this city. Just want to let you know that. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Councilman Parker?
Oh, question?
No, I don't have, no, ma'am, I don't have a question of you. I just want to say thank you for your hard work and dedication to the city of Pontiac. Is legendary. From the time you spent on the school board to now, all that you've done has been to make Pontiac a more vital city, a more productive city, and a more energized city. And you have been working very diligently and hard to get us to funding to be able to do that. So from the bottom of District 5's heart, we said thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Parker. That means a whole bunch to me because the people who work together up, and I keep on saying it's not just one person, it's not just me, but each of us who work very hard to make this day possible for the residents in the future of Pontiac. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And it was something else I said, but I forgot it. So I got to go to work now. Anybody else have anything else to say?
No, don't want to hold you up, but looks like Pro Tem Carrington wants to do a round of applause. Standing ovation.
All right. Thank you.
And the residents of District 7 are going to be over the moon when we share that at our July District 7 meeting. Bless you. Safe travels back to Lansing.
Mr. President.
Yes, Councilwoman James.
Yeah, I just want to say that words cannot express our gratitude for the news that we got when the budget was approved in Lansing. When we think about the transition that's happened in our state government, that we have gone to a strong Democratic House, we received the benefit of our investing in ourselves and in getting out the vote. So we really appreciate, and again, words cannot express how we felt when those numbers came in, because it was proof that our voices are heard. But that voice didn't happen accidentally. It happened because people got out and they voted and they did the right thing, but now we're receiving the benefit of that. But again, Representative Carter, we are so appreciative of the work that you and others in the House and Senate did. And again, words just cannot express our gratitude.
Councilman James, I would have to say, you echoed a point that 2 points I'd like to make real quickly. Number one, it was because of the belief of the people who sent me back to Lansing. So they are the real heroes here, not me. The ones who believed in me that I could get the job done and sent me back there is the ones that should be getting applause tonight. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention the call that I got on the floor when the budget passed. At the exact moment the budget passed, I got a call from County Executive Dave Coulter, and this is his exact words. He said, "You did them both. You got them both." I said, "Yes, thank you, thank you, thank you." So I really appreciate the love and respect that I've received here tonight, and I'm going to keep on fighting as long as I'm in Lansing. Once again, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Safe travels back to Lansing. We are at recognition of elected officials. We had our state representative just address us now. I don't see any other current elected officials wishing to be recognized. So with that, we're at agenda address. I think we've got a few. Pro Tem Carrington?
Yes, thank you, President McGinnis. Dr. Deidre Waterman.
I'm very happy to speak to the same item that our representative did tell us about. That's great for the city of Pontiac, and it shows how elections do have consequences. You know, it's great to have people who are in the legislature or advocates for the city of Pontiac and bringing us that money. Unfortunately, when I was mayor, the state rep was Tim Grimel, and he was under a different kind of administration and wasn't able to bring money. We brought us an emergency manager we had to work with, but it shows that elections make consequences, and it's good that we elected Brenda Carter, as well as the others who helped. One of the things that, as I was talking to the representative. She knows I'm on the Black Leadership Advisory Council. There's some other things that will pass in this budget that are coming that will benefit the city as well, including Make It in Michigan, also supporting making more diverse contractors, especially for the money coming for the infrastructure bill and things like that. But one of the things that she wasn't acquainted with and said she didn't know about, because I was asking the question, as this money was explained to us to downtown, our mayor told us, and he's not here, so we'll have to speak to it another time, that $19 million of that $55 million was going to go to a sweetheart deal to the developer who was derelict in the deal he had with us to do the repairs. So we are, that's kind of strange, particularly when you compare the $19 million for that deal versus the only $1 million out of all the ARP money, the $40 million that's going to all the people who wanted home repairs. You saw that the flow out with that, there were so many people scrambling to get the little bit of money. We're trying to talk to the mayor into bringing more money into that because there's so many people who should be eligible for that money. So as you compare $19 million to a developer who has not befriended the city in the right way, only $1 or $2 million to all the residents of the city who should be eligible for ARP money, you do the math, okay?
Thank you. Mr. Chuck Johnson? Ms. Gloria Miller? President McGinnis, that concludes agenda address.
Okay. We're at Municipal Code Ordinance Text Amendment. This is regarding waste container storage or trash cans placement for properties. This has been before us for a few previous weeks, most recently postponed from the June 27th City Council meeting. So it's before us once more. Any additional information that the administration wants to provide before we resume the speakers list?
I believe that the attorney may have some additional information.
Good evening, Council. At the Council's request from, I suppose it was 2 meetings prior to this one, we did make quite a few changes to the trash ordinance that is before you today. Those changes are in your agenda packet and they are highlighted specifically, but I will review them for your knowledge so that we don't have to have you review them now. Specifically, we added a condition that all waste containers must be stored with the lid closed. We did specify that all waste containers must be maintained in a hygienic fashion in order to prohibit odor and animals from becoming a nuisance. We added a provision that any waste that cannot be contained within those containers must also be stored in a fashion that is hygienic and prohibits odor and animals from becoming a nuisance. And then specifically to address Council's concerns 2 meetings ago, we did add a provision that all waste containers shall be stored in a garage or under a carport. However, in the event that a home does not have a garage or a carport, the waste container and any and all waste that cannot fit in the container shall be stored on the end of the driveway closest to the rear of the home. That way, we don't have the issue of storing these waste containers in the back of the home. I know we had some concerns about taking the waste containers over grass or snow in the winter, so in homes that don't have a carport or garage, we are making sure that those containers are still stored towards the back side of the home on the driveway to make sure that we maintain cleanliness, but also make sure that this is safe and helpful for residents. And we did maintain all of the prior provisions that contain the exceptions and the permit for individuals that have disabilities or are otherwise unable to take their trash to and from the curb each week. If anyone has any questions, I would be happy to answer them.
Pro Tem Carrington?
Actually, no question. I just have to thank you for your work, as well as I'd like to thank the council for making this ordinance a lot better. I definitely know the homes, we have a lot of homes that don't have garages in the 6th district, so I think that those adjustments definitely meet the requirements of what we was looking for, so thank you.
Thank you.
When we had our second reading, it did not have this language that they have prepared for us, so I would like to entertain an amendment to have the substitute language be what's fully incorporated into the the ordinance amendment before us. So essentially, you're just going to move to amend to substitute the language as drafted and presented.
I will move to amend, adding the substituted information.
Second?
It's been moved by Councilman Nicholson, seconded by Pro Tem Carrington. So this isn't the final adoption. This is just so that way what we have before us is what we're working with and debating further. Roll call on adoption of that amendment. Clerk Doyle.
Nicholson,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes?
Carrington,
Yes.
Goodman,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
6 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries, so the amended language is now what's in the motion before us. Further debate and discussion on the motion before us.
I do have a question.
Councilman Parker.
I noticed, in particularly in Article 2, Section B, you specifically refer to the city-provided refuse container. But is anyone authorized to use any other type of container other than the city's provided refuse container? You can't use any others, right?
Other containers can be used provided that they satisfy all the requirements. There are 16 in subsection F, so as long as other containers satisfy those requirements, they are acceptable.
Okay, thank you.
Deputy Mayor Stevens.
I'll have to check our contract. So by ordinance, yes, they are acceptable, but I need to make sure that by contract, because I do believe that they use the automatic arms. And so we have to make sure that the container will work with the automatic arm.
Any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, sounds like council's prepared to render a verdict. This is the Municipal Code Ordinance Text Amendment to amend Article 2, Chapter 94, Section 26, Refuse Containers and Yard Waste Containers Specifications, to add subsection G regarding regulation of waste containers storage. Roll call on adoption. Clerk Doyle.
Parker,
Yes?
Carrington,
Yes.
Goodman,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
McGinnis,
No.
Nicholson.
Yes.
5 yeas, 1 nay.
That motion carries. The ordinance is hereby amended. And that goes into effect, Madam City Attorney. I don't want to put you on the spot. I know sometimes there's a 10-day window, sometimes there's a little bit longer. Do you know off the top of your head for this particular change?
I do. For this change, it's 10 days.
Okay, so it's adopted on July 6th, so as of July 16th, essentially for the community's benefit, that's when this requirement goes into effect. Thank you very much. All right, is there a motion to adopt the resolution approving the contract with the Michigan Department of Transportation?
Moved by Carrington.
Support.
All right, so it's moved by Pro Tem Carrington, second by Councilman Goodman. This is a contract with the Michigan Department of Transportation for Franklin Road resurfacing construction at $1,069,200. We get the floor to the administration.
Okay, so we do have our city engineer here to speak to this item, which is exciting that we are finally to this point.
Good evening. So in the continued progress forward to bring your roads up to a much nicer standard, you have been working with your engineering firm to develop plans to renovate Franklin Road. Bids went out last month. Bids are expected back from MDOT to MDOT tomorrow, and then we will know what the total cost of the project was. What you have in front of you this evening is the contract between the City of Pontiac and MDOT to authorize MDOT to administer the project and move forward. We are asking that it be approved prior to bids coming in simply because of the time constraint. This is a project that is still yet to be constructed this year, and under the contract documents, it has to be finished by this year. So we can't afford any delays.
All right, with that, Councilman Parker.
I just have one question, and I'm thankful that you're getting ready because I drive up and down that street a little bit more because of the construction that's on Woodward and also the MLK Bridge being closed. But will this project coincide with those projects? And because Franklin Road is a side road that goes bypass, allows you to bypass those projects. But what is our detours with that in place? Do we have any alternate detours now?
Well, this is a mill and resurface, so it shouldn't involve detours. It should be single lane closures and then divert traffic.
Okay. Thank you.
Further discussion, Councilman Nicholson?
In Councilman Rutherford's absence, I want to make sure she did bring up in previous works in that, right in that area, just about detour signing. The detour signing for Woodward was not necessarily adequate. We want to make sure that the detour signing goes up early, that there's continued detour signing throughout the entire detour path. So as that project was a MDOT, there'll be a similar concern here. And then also prior notification signs where the message boards go up saying as of blank date. Once construction schedule is assigned, if we could make sure to work with Councilwoman Rutherford on making sure that those needs are met for those neighborhoods.
Sure, just take some notes here. Yes, we can do that.
Councilwoman James?
I just wanted to clarify that this is not an MDOT road. It is a local road.
Yes,
But MDOT is going to be responsible for the construction.
MDOT administers the contracts for you. That way, there's no cash outlay here. You only have to pay the percentage. We only have to pay the percentage that we're responsible for. We
Okay.
don't have to pay the entire project and then ask for reimbursements. MDOT handles that with the federal funding for us.
Okay, okay.
And I apologize, I did misspeak. I was confused with another project. This one does have a detour, and it runs along South Boulevard to Bagley and up to Orchard Lake Road. So we'll make sure we get the signage out there.
But in terms of at least southbound Woodward, at least one lane is open now. And the
Yes.
expectation is that there won't be a direct correlation between the timeline for this project and substantial interruption for Woodward Avenue, northbound or southbound. Is that fair?
No, we're hoping that those two will coordinate and that Woodward's going to start to wrap up. They're finishing up their interior work on the medians now, so we're hoping to see that reopen again before this starts, but the time constraint is tight. If they delay, then our contractor is going to be at a much tighter schedule to try and get their work done before they have to pay liquidated damages. So it's going to probably be weather dependent.
Okay. Councilman James?
What is the estimated completion date?
They have to have it open to traffic by November.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, the motion is adoption of the resolution approving the contract with the Michigan Department of Transportation for Franklin Road resurface construction at $1,069,200. Roll call, Clerk Doyle.
Harrington,
Yes.
Goodman,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Nicholson,
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
6 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. The resolution is adopted. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution approving the contract with Flock Camera Systems for continuation of services at an annual rate of $42,500?
Moved by Carrington, or support.
Moved by Councilman Parker, seconded by Pro Tem Carrington. The motion is now before us. We give the floor to the administration.
Thank you, Council President. We do have representatives from the Sheriff's Department here to talk about the flock system tonight. I will just set it up by saying that last year, Council approved a pilot program, which was at no cost to the city. And the Sheriff's Department found that program to be highly successful. And we have been offered a, what I would say, very nice promotion by Flock, and that is to hold the pricing consistent for the next 5 years. So the price that Flock was charging last year, they are holding consistent for the next 5 years. And the Sheriff's Office is here to tell you why they would like us to keep the Flock system.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. My name is Sam Marsman. I'm the Detective Lieutenant. I oversee the Pontiac Detective Bureau. I have Detective James with me and Sergeant Threckeld of our community policing unit. We're just here to answer any questions regarding the Flock system. As the Deputy Mayor said, we participated in a free trial for 1 year. What that Flock system is, it's an automated license plate reader system. Our focus in using this tool. We used it primarily as a tool for investigating violent crimes such as shootings, assault with intent to murder, murders, criminal sexual conduct. It's also useful in abduction cases or primarily violent crime. We used it in over 100 investigations in that free trial period. What it does is it captures basically the license plate of the vehicle and it stores it for a maximum of 30 days. After 30 days, it's permanently deleted from the system and it can no longer be accessed. The way it's accessed is through a login system, and investigators have to put a reason code in it, so it's not an arbitrary thing where they can go in and just look at the system. They have to provide a reason code. This is a homicide investigation. This is the case number, and this is what we're using it for. So I mentioned 100 investigations. Some particular were assault intent to murder. In June of last year, it was one of our first cases with Flock. A person was set on fire at a gas station. It did cover a portion of that incident, but we weren't able to gather the vehicle information based on the distance of the camera. We were able to tell what type of vehicle it was, and we searched the Flock system in that area. We were able to develop a license plate of that vehicle and arrested a suspect responsible for lighting that person on fire. In 3 days after that, we had a homicide. We had a vague vehicle description. We checked the Flock system based on that vehicle description. We were able to gather the license plate of that vehicle. We identified a suspect, and he was arrested within 2 hours without incident of that homicide investigation. On August of that year, 2022, a 15-year-old was sexually assaulted. We were able to identify the suspect through the Flock system using the license plate reader. Multiple stolen car investigations. Again, another assault with intent to murder investigation. A suspect shot someone at a gas station 15 times in August. Again, we were able to use that system to identify the suspect vehicle and make an arrest.
Thank you for that. The Oakland County Sheriff's Department sends the City Council monthly summaries of all the instances in which the Flock system was utilized and sort of the outcome of that. Sometimes it doesn't yield much of anything, but we still get a report on that. But it obviously has very substantial outcomes. You've summarized some of them, and the City Council and the administration is able to view those on a monthly basis. And the Public Safety, Health, and Wellness Subcommittee has continued to engage with representatives from the Fire Department, Sheriff's Department, and Star EMS on these and other public safety matters. So is there anything that the Public Safety, Health, and Wellness Subcommittee wanted to elevate or flag as you've been reviewing it further?
Actually, President McGinnis, you guys really summed it up, and the presentation actually covered everything that I was probably going to add tonight. So I definitely thank you for being transparent in this system, because it's definitely, as we look at the data for the last 12 months, it's definitely worked. We haven't had any incidents where anything has been utilized wrong with this particular system. So I'm very confident with Oakland County having this system.
So this is before us is essentially the agreement or commitment with Flock. And then we as a City Council will have decisions that we'll make in the coming months in terms of which budget bucket it comes from. It's very likely that it will be an American Rescue Plan initiative where it would qualify as an eligible project utilizing what we've done as the public safety category of ARP funding as it relates to the city of Pontiac. But that is something that the City Council will decide in the coming months in terms of, is it a general fund or is it an American Rescue Plan specifically eligible charge? But this is locking us in at the lower rate, so that way if we went year over year, we'd probably be paying more for each camera on an annual basis. This gets us more competitive pricing. Councilman Nicholson.
With the use of the system and the current cameras that we have, in future years, do you think we'll recommend additional cameras?
I think additional cameras would be beneficial. We're trying to place them throughout the city to where it would be most effective, but obviously Pontiac's a large city, so the number of cameras I would think would help the effectiveness. There are some blind spots of the cameras.
Thank you. And then I have a follow-up for the administration. I understand we're probably still waiting for some of the ceasefire numbers to come in to understand where it would make the best sense to assign these funds. But this would be a good example of, in finance, what we were talking about, of bringing the allocation with the contract, just so that way in future times it's not another highly debated, long, standing question. Thank you.
And that's a great point. So this city council has been looking at, with the administration, the ceasefire initiative. I know many of you that are at the dais are engaged in those same conversations. So for the community's benefit, we're looking at multiple public policy strategies to help prevent crime as well. And so do it in a holistic way for the community, and that would be likely an eligible American Rescue Plan expenditure, where we're using the federal funding with our public safety category. So that'll be more information forthcoming for this council and the community's benefit as those figures and timelines are finalized. Any further debate on the motion before us, the resolution approving the contract with Flock Camera Systems for continuation of services at an annual rate of $42,500? Councilwoman James.
I just have a comment that when we first approved the original trial, I think I know for myself, I was very much for the system. I think we all were, but there were some concerns as to the potential for it to be used improperly. And I just want to say, I want to commend the sheriff's office for making sure that that did not happen. We did not see any evidence that this system was used inappropriately and out of order. We really appreciate the fact that you did, hold the line to your own policies and procedures, and it's just been a tremendous benefit to the city to be able to help the police to solve, very, very critical and dangerous crimes. So I want to thank you for how you have used the Flock system in the city of Pontiac.
Thank you, Councilwoman James.
You had mentioned the incident where at a gas station a victim was set on fire and the Flock system allowed the suspect to be apprehended ultimately. Was that on Huron Street, that gas station?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Because I know Councilman Nicholson, who represents that area, was gravely concerned and reached out to me when that happened. Any further discussion before us? Hearing no further discussion, roll call on adoption of the resolution. Clerk Doyle.
Carrington,
Yes.
Goodman,
No.
James,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Nicholson.
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
5 yeas, 1 nay.
That motion carries. The resolution is adopted. And thank you on this holiday week for being here. We are now at public comment. Pro Tem Carrington.
Yes, thank you, President McGinnis. Okay. Minister Veronica Taylor.
I got to get used to this mic. First, I honor God who saves my life. I'm here on the behalf of our prosecuting attorney's office. She has sent out some address of gunfires. I put them on y'all table, and I'm passing them out through the community. And read the back of them and understand what she's trying to do and get did. So I want the community to know our Oakland County prosecuting attorney is taking charge on our gun violence, okay? Thank you all.
Thank you. Dr. Deidre Waterman.
This time, I saw on the agenda a next item that's going to be discussed for discussion. It's read as corrective action measures submitted to Michigan Department of Treasury. I don't know, there's no explanation of this, and there's nothing in the packet, so I'm not quite sure what all is involved here. But I'm going to do some second guessing. I don't know who's going to present this, the finance director or deputy mayor or whoever. But since I won't get a chance to comment on it after, because this is time for public comment, I just wanted to make some observations for people. One of the things is we had made comment on some of the things that we felt were improper. And brought you the documentation for that. One of those things was, and I pointed out this to you, was the $10.1 million that was put in the general fund budget from ARP money, both last year and this year. When we came and talked about that at first, it was denied and we were kind of ridiculed. But I want to report to you that apparently it had some effect, because as I check what is posted on the website now, that $10.1 million had been put in earlier when you looked at the budget, has been taken out in the approved budget, all right? So that has been corrected for the record. So you may not, I just want to let people know if that has been done. And so that came from us coming and telling you about that. The other thing that I had brought to your attention was that you had given a 3% raise across the board to the employees, staff, which is good for the hardworking staff. But also, I showed you and brought in the posted document. I told you the page where that 3% had also been given to the elected officials. The elected officials means the city council and the mayor. But as you know, I think our president knows, as well as our Councilman Nicholson knows, that those raises, sorry, council and mayor, have to be done under state law by the local officers compensation commission. So that was improper. I see now that that has been taken down from the website, but properly that should be officially addressed. The other thing was the auditors, which the mayor got rid of. The auditors has brought in a very scathing report of the things of correction. Maybe that's what you're talking about now in this report. But it was unfortunate that when you bring in bad news, you get let go. And so now the auditors are gone. And that was done within 3 weeks of the time that they had reported to the city what they thought was their obligation to report. I'll also be on radio talking about a wrap-up of local affairs on 9:10 a.m. radio from 2 to 4 p.m. this Saturday. Guest of the Mark Lee Show. We'll be talking about a lot of current issues.
All right, thank you, Dr. Waterman. Ms. Billy Swazer.
Good evening. I'm Billy Swazer. I am one of the people that is on the General Employees Retirement System. I also serve on the board for the City of Pontiac Retired Employees Association. I've been censured by the board because they thought that I sent some information from CPRA to the GERS board. But let us all know that I think it's next week or the week after, they're going to have a federal hearing. And one of the things that me and another partner on the GERS board and CPRA board want to get is the $400 for the retirees. We don't know that this will go through. The wording was such that it implied it might go through. But CPRA wants the city to pay for part of the actuary study, although I don't think it's appropriate because CPRA instructed the actuary what to do. And the resolution as it was passed by CPRA members was to halt any money going to VIVA, to take the remaining balance that was in the GERS, the old GERS, and put it in the new GERS to fund the $400. The mayor says he doesn't have problems with the $400, just pay for it. Now, CPRA says they asked the actuary, look at new GERS money only and see if they can pay for it. That's not the way we voted for it. That's not the way the actuary should have looked at it. And I have a real big problem with people doing what they want to do. I make $50,000 or $60,000 in pension. Claudia Phillip, who is the president of the VIVA, and also is the chairman of the VIVA, and she is the president of the CPRA, makes over $120,000 a year. I say, you know, there's people that make $3,000 and $4,000 a year, maybe $6,000, but they make less than $10,000. They don't make as much as me, which I thank you. I'm very happy to be getting what I'm getting. But you help the people who are on the low end. You don't help the people on the high end, and you don't hurt the citizens of Pontiac. If GERS goes, you have to make an adjustment in that money if it goes to new GERS. It will be the retirees that will have to suffer the reduction. I thank you. I hope anybody interested can come to the federal building and attend the hearing. Make sure you don't take no weapons.
Thank you. That concludes public comment, President McGinnis.
Yes, sir. Are there any other requests for public comment this evening? Mr. Troy Kraft?
Good evening, Pontiac. Sorry I'm so late. I just walked in, and I'd like to say hello to everybody. I haven't been in here in a minute. Today, I come as a citizen of Pontiac, as a community organizer, a person who runs events for the children here. Back a few years ago, you know, as everybody know, I'm into the sports thing or however it was. I created a program called BD Basketball, pretty much out of my own concepts with the certain steps and different things. And the age bracket was 4 to 7 years old. I've been pretty much running that program for about maybe 4 times a year. And since the last time I was employed here, I've been running it through my nonprofit, my 501c3, Craft Tea Athletics. And, you know, I don't have a problem with it. The city reached out to me last year to go in a contract for me to run my program, BD Basketball. I've done it a couple times over this past year. I don't have a problem with the program, you know, itself, of them running the program now. But my problem is that they're using my name without my permission, and I was totally blindsided when they put it on the summer schedule as BD Basketball. I happen to be on Golf Drive running my own programs right now through my 501c3. And if I want to run BD Basketball right now, there's some confusion going on. I asked them to take it down. You can change it to Pee Wee. Just change the name. You can still have the same program because I'm for the kids. But now confusion is setting in. The person didn't have the audacity to call me back. It's been 10 days since I had talked to them. They didn't respond until I put up a post on social media. That I try to stay away from going live or anything like that. Now, I just feel that I was blindsided with it, and I think it's wrong. We don't have to do this to our citizens. If anything, you should have jumped on with me. And for what I understand, the city is trying to come over there where I'm at right now, a place that everybody threw away at the beginning of the administration. But they're inquiring about the space now when didn't nobody want it. Okay? Now that's another blind side. I mean, we want the best for our kids. I want the best for the kids, okay? But please, please don't take my ideas and use them in your name and everything. Those parents that signed up for that program, it's full of capacity right now, but the parents that signed up for the program right now, they're thinking I'm supposed to be doing the program. But check with your person right now. That was outright wrong. I don't usually come up here and complain about stuff. I'm complaining right now. That's cool.
And then for the record, that last name is C-R-A-F-T. All right, anyone else wish to have public comment? Yes.
Hi, good evening. My name is Josie Bird. I live at the Greens of Crystal Lake condos, and I'm a concerned citizen in regards to the road outside of our complex. What is that, Bagley and Golf Drive. Just wanted to know when will construction start on that, and also about the Pontiac, downtown Pontiac, the Phoenix Center. What exactly is going to go on with that? And then also the golf course. We're concerned about the golf course. We know that the golf course was up for sale. We know that the original deal fell through. And we have such a good city council now and such a good mayor and deputy mayor. We was wondering if the city would take consideration in buying a golf course back again.
And can you spell your first and last name so we get it right for the record?
Yes, first name is Josie, Josie Byrd.
Okay. And if you want to leave your contact information, we can try and get some answers.
All right, great.
For that.
Thank you. Oh, one more thing.
Yes.
There was a list that went out with the 18 best restaurants in Pontiac. I'm not sure, I've never heard of the magazine before or the writer, but I did visit the Liberty Bar, and they had them listed as the best wings. So we are getting recognition from, different newspapers or whatever, and they listed all of our top restaurants, even the Alley Cat Cafe. So I want to say that the city is coming back, and I love the city, and thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being here tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Other requests for public comment? All right. With that, we are at discussions. First, corrective action measures submitted to the Michigan Department of Treasury. The City Council's Finance and Personnel Subcommittee has already. Deputy Mayor, is there anything further you wanted to elaborate on?
Thank you, yes. So, as has been discussed many times, we had a forensic audit, and the forensic audit identified numerous areas where the city could improve. That forensic audit the results of that forensic audit were included then in our regular audit. And so then the regular audit, of course, included those areas as well. As a result of all of that, when the city filed its annual financial reports with the state, we also had to file what we were going to do to address the deficiencies in the audits. And so I would just like to go over, I just picked out two of them because these two items appear to come up very frequently from the public. And so I want to clear the record as to what these items are and what we are doing to address them. The first, during our audit, we identified and proposed material adjustments to adjust the city's general ledger to the appropriate balance. This condition was a result of the lack of management oversight. Internal controls did not detect all adjustments necessary to properly record year-end balances. And I would like to remind everybody that the particular budget year that we are talking about, only the second half of that budget year was the sitting council and sitting mayor overseeing it. So the vast majority of this happened during a previous administration for which we had to do the cleanup. And our response, the finance director has implemented new procedures to reconcile and adjust all the general ledger accounts at the year end. So we are actually doing it in the correct, timely fashion. A second deficiency that did come up in that audit. As is the case with many smaller and medium-sized entities, the city has relied on its independent external auditors to assist in the preparation of the financial statements and footnotes as part of the external financial reporting process. Accordingly, the city's ability to prepare financial statements in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, also known as GAAP, is based in part on its reliance on external auditors who cannot, by definition, be considered a part of the city's internal controls. Response. The city administration has increased the qualified staffing strength in the finance department. Service of the external auditors will not be necessary to prepare financial statements in the current and future years. Additionally, what we have done is hired an external accounting firm to deal with any overflow that we may have. And again, this is directly a result of a deficiency that was created by the previous administration that we have corrected. And so that is what is in the report, generally speaking. Thank you.
Councilman Nicholson.
So the deputy mayor used a term called GAAP accounting principles, generally accepted accounting principles. So when you have an audit, an auditor comes in and you hire that auditor and they look through your procedures, they do interviews, they're looking at things like separation of duties for theft prevention, to ensure that the same person who isn't asking for a check to be cut isn't the same person who is booking that expense, isn't the same person who is approving that expense. So implementing those procedures are incredibly important, especially for municipalities, as we know, with many other municipalities recently that have been audited and finding, even by the government, finding that there have been theft, issues of theft, and the opportunity presents itself when there is no separation of duties. So at the first Finance and Personnel Subcommittee, we did ask for the auditors who had been retained for 10 years. That is an incredibly bad business practice. Using the same auditor for 10 years, you develop a relationship with them, they develop familiarity with the organization, they don't have as much of a sharp eye. So our request was to meet with the auditors, help understand what their scope of the audit was, where they've done deep dives each year. Typically, you bring in an internal auditor and they do a full scope audit. And then years after that, about every 3 years, a full scope audit is really required. They also will look during that full scope of what are the areas by which there's really in-depth accounting or there could be, especially in investments. Our investments are primarily in a pooled investment with Oakland County, and we have very rigid requirements of what types of investment vehicles that we can use as a municipality. Those deep dives were essentially never done. The auditor came in and did a full scope audit, and then after that did just minimally required audits. Those audits each year came back completely clean. So much to our surprise, when we have the forensic audit, which the public was crying out for, many of us really were champions of doing that, finding out that internal controls were just simply not there. That we did have all of those opportunities, that the auditor was not interviewing different members of staff to find out whether or not they could, essentially they come to your office and they say, if someone was going to steal from here, how would they do it? And those questions were never asked. So we really definitely weren't satisfied with the work in the previous audits, but primarily the fact that we'd retained the same auditor for 10 years was alarming to us. We did request that we do go through that, it was already late, as we've talked about. You have to start setting up that auditor. There's pre-work, there's a lot that needs to be sent to them so they can start the process on their own. So we did have to settle with that auditor for one more year. Our requirement of that auditor was to open that scope of the audit and go into the internal controls and all of those theft prevention measures, especially with the information that we got from the forensic audit to say these are the focus areas. They did provide that audit, and pairing that information and providing our audited financial statements, then we did get this response from the state. So corrective action plans are very regular when you have material adjustments and things like that that need to be made. And as the public is aware, we did let go that finance director, have a new finance director, as well as some of those more intricate account reconciliations are done by a third party. So our financial controls, as they are today and as they have been since the onset of the deputy mayor really getting involved in the finance department, are back to where they need to be. So providing this response, I have all confidence that the state is going to be satisfied with that response and that the city has done its due diligence in hiring a new auditor and continuing to hire a new auditor on a regular basis. It is certainly not a response. This audit, the RFP started well in advance of us, and we were given a full year's notice that we would not be continuing using them for audit services. So this was not in response to their audit response. This is in response to the negative response or negative result of the forensic audit and our displeasure with the scope of the previous audits.
Further discussion? Councilman Parker.
So, and I certainly want to thank the administration. I certainly want to also thank the chair of our Finance and Personnel Subcommittee, Councilman Nicholson, for the due diligence that they've exercised in making sure that we have put the city back on track in regards to the finances and how they are handled and the proper process in which we can keep track of all the monies that is spent and how it is spent and make sure that exercising due diligence and keeping everyone apprised of what's going on with the dollars as it applies to the city. So thank the administration and thank Councilman Nicholson as the chair of our subcommittee.
Further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, we're at the next discussion item. The Pride and Beautification nominations remain open, so for you and your neighbors, please submit those nominations. You can get the forms here at Pontiac City Hall, hard copies. You can also get the forms online on the City Council's page of the City of Pontiac website. You can, if you need any other assistance, if you need somebody to drop it off to you, you name it, give us a shout. Or you want us to, you call it in, we'll take it. You can drop off the forms there's a box outside of the City Hall or the City Council chambers here in City Hall. You can email them to the City Council or you can mail them. So we're, again, by any means necessary, celebrate and share the bounty of the good work of your neighbors beautifying our great city. Any questions or discussion on the Pride and Beautification nominations? Pro Tem Carrington.
Just one quick question. Have we got a big influx of nominations?
It has been steady. I can try and before the next meeting get a sense of which council districts, might have have more responses than others, so that way we can make sure that we get a healthy return rate from everybody.
Well, my district starts slow and we finish fast at the end, so.
All right. All right. Any further discussion? All right. With that, our final discussion item, unregistered rental properties and their conditions. Councilman Goodman.
So we are about to have one of the few moments in this city where I kind of go off. So for a brief second, I want everyone on this dais and in the audience and at home to apply what I'm saying and think about it as their own living condition. So imagine that you are renting a property in the city to live in, because the city of Pontiac is majority renter. And the windows to your house were nailed shut, so they could not be opened. If you were paying carpet cleaning fees despite cleaning the carpet yourself, if you got locked in your bathroom and could not get your way out without having someone open it from the outside, if you had a property that you are paying money for and yet your landlord has someone living in the garage that you are constantly not told about, if your landlord had their personal items sitting in your basement of the place that you are paying full rent for, including having things on the property as well, including a car that's not being driven, and despite me being a person who partakes in marijuana, a landlord who has their growing equipment in the backyard of a place that you're renting. Imagine if your windows did not have screens and your landlord's solution to that was not to install a screen, but to install what I could only describe, ironically, as chicken wire on every single window, especially the second story windows. Imagine if you signed a lease that the LLC that is on the lease is not the LLC that the place is registered under, because the place wasn't registered at all until about a month ago. If the landlord came into your property completely unannounced, if the bathroom sink in your bathroom was not attached to the wall and was loose and could be moved at all times, if the light switch in your dining room / living room shocked you every time you went to touch it, these are just some of the things I mentioned besides your basement flooding. There being a massive hole outside that allows water to come in and flood your basement on a regular basis, where, again, not only your stuff is, but your landlord's stuff is. And I can say all these things because I personally have gone through this residence place. Now, imagine upon all of that, you're paying $1,300 a month. $1,300 a month, where when you ask your landlord for receipts, they're not giving them to you. Luckily for you, you have a text message of when you pay it every time. But on top of that, imagine upon you making complaints about the conditions of this, and the landlord overhears you because they're on the property nearby, and they decide to say, you know what, I don't want to take your rent anymore, I want you gone because you complain too much. So, if that is a situation that I watched happen and dealt with today at one property in the city, how many more are there? And I'm not saying this in hyperbole or, by extension. My ass, walked through that house myself, took pictures, have pictures on my phone. why are we still in this situation? Now, for a while, I have made multiple complaints. My colleagues have backed me up on these complaints. I think everyone in the city recognizes that not only do we have an issue with affordable housing, we have an issue with negligent landlords and slumlords in the city. And the fact that this is a thing that I'm able to read off to you with such detail and such anger is a massive problem. Now, I do want to call back that one of the ways that we can solve this is by passing ordinances that actually do things so we can enforce upon these people. One that I mentioned a while ago, and I'll not yell at the administration too much because I'll let the deputy mayor speak about it. There are things that we can be doing and should be doing because there's no reason why there is a culmination of all these things. And more importantly, there's no reason why any landlord should ever feel comfortable giving a retaliatory action because someone's complaining about the conditions of their house when they are getting shocked, when they're getting locked in their bathroom, and when they are not safe because the landlord allows people in and out of the property garage at literally all times of the night, and specifically tries to wait until the tenant is not there to be able to see and watch it happen. So I say all these things to say the city council actively, along with the administration, should be putting forth ordinances that resolve this issue, because I will not keep having people call me about situations like this. When me and the mayor first came in, before we even took office, there was a situation just like this that we dealt with, where someone was living in an unregistered rental because people need housing. They're going to take housing where they can get it. But the fact that that they just feel comfortable doing these things is beyond ridiculous. And the fact that it is happening all over our city is even more so. I mean, the fact that I can look at this rental agreement and see multiple areas where I would have just ripped this apart in the first place, and I have very little legal knowledge, but just a decent amount of knowledge of how housing works, especially when it comes to leases as a tenant myself. But the fact that just even in the most petty and ironic sense, that someone who we approved to have the emerald green store that is on Midway is the person doing this. And they have an LLC that, when you look it up, well, at least the one that's in the rental agreement, there's no registered properties under that LLC. But they did when, for some reason, when this rental agreement had to be sent over to DHHS, because obviously people need to send over verification where they're living at, the landlord freaks out and says, don't send that one, send this one. And that one has a different LLC and likely different rental provisions that are different than the one that the tenant signed. And also to go from the name of Four Brothers Real Estate Holdings to, and I'm not making this up, an LLC that is I got you. I got you, all as one singular word, as LLC. And when you look up that LLC, you do find the property. What is this? And I say this with such anger, and it's not directed at anyone other than the landlords themselves and the slumlords, the people who are doing these things. What are we going to do to solve this? Because I will be the most aggressive person who will send over the most stringent ordinances if we don't figure this out together, because I am tired of this. As a person who grew up in Section 8 housing, who currently lives in an apartment where, my inspection person has been doing a great job at inspecting the building, where I live at, they still haven't solved it yet. They haven't made multiple repairs, including my ceiling fan that still has a massive hole in the ceiling that stuff can still fall through. So we are at a place where even the situations that we are aware of aren't being fixed properly, and we're doing our best. But there are so many places where we simply do not know what's happening, and we must solve that problem and start creating solutions, because again, the anger that I have right now is not just theater. I am sitting here, I've been saying this entire meeting, with a fiery feeling, because what I will not do is allow these tenants to go home to a situation like this, nor will I let them sit there and be threatened by a slumlord because they want to have changes in their living conditions. So, ignoring how long I've been speaking, I do want to hear from my colleagues in the administration, because something has to be done, because I will create a problem every single week until it is.
Pro Tem Carrington.
Yes, thank you, President McGinnis. Councilman Goodman, for bringing this to our attention. I just got one question. Has code enforcement been out to this particular building?
So from my understanding, code enforcement has been out to the building. That is how how it originally was found out that it was an unregistered property.
Okay. And since code enforcement has been out, what's been the mediation of this particular property, Deputy Mayor?
We happen to have the code enforcement manager here, and he can let you know that.
Good evening. So this particular property on Midway, we were first, it was brought to our attention actually by the fire department. The resident that is living there called the fire department. She was concerned about what the property owner installed on the second floor story. She felt it was a safety hazard. So that very same day that the fire department was there, they called us over, both myself and the building official. We went over, we ordered him to immediately remove these grates that he had installed on the second floor. We came back to City Hall, realized that wasn't registered. We issued him a citation. He then came in and registered the property. We actually did an inspection there ourselves today. When we first got there, our inspector was turned away, Inspector Foster. It's a district, your district. I called the owner, told him that wasn't acceptable. The tenant is home, and we're coming back to do the inspection. So we went back, and today we generated a list of items that have to be corrected. He'll be given a particular amount of time to get those things done, and if he doesn't, then we'll proceed forward in district court.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And the time, how long did you rejection at this time so we can have a better understanding of the situation? How long that it will take you to get to district court?
You mean if we were to write a ticket, how long would we?
Because it seemed like there's a lot of different things. I can't see them in 7 days taking care of all this stuff, so unless they miracle workers. So,
So our typical procedure when we do a normal rental inspection that doesn't have egregious violations on the property is we typically give, someone comes in, they've got their property registered as a rental, they know that their third year routine inspection needs to be done, they schedule the inspection, we go out and do an initial inspection. It's a 30-day turnaround. So within 30 days, we're back to do the final inspection, hopefully. And then if it's not completed, if those items are not corrected within those 30 days, that includes also a furnace cert. It's required by ordinance that every 3 years, in addition to a rental inspection, a furnace inspection has to take place. So that's also a requirement that has to come back to us within 30 days. If they don't comply, although I think that we're going to be talking about exactly what Councilman Goodman has been asking for. We're prepared to answer some of those questions because we feel just as strongly as you do, and our mayor is extremely passionate about this topic, and we've been working with the Kelly Law Firm to create a new ordinance. Okay. Morgan can talk more specifically about it, but it's going to address those issues. The general rule, or the general goal, is that there shouldn't be a single landlord in this city that even considers moving someone into a property unless it's been certified by the building department. So what has been a past practice typically is that they'll move folks in and then they'll come in and schedule an inspection. Our goal with this new ordinance that we're going to be bringing before you soon is that they won't even consider doing that. They won't move somebody into an apartment, a house, a townhome, a mobile home if it's a rental, until it's been inspected and certified by the building department. And we've got lots of protection that we're building into that ordinance. So there can't be retaliation. There can't be evictions because of this action. It's going to involve escrow, very similar to what Detroit did, and they're very successful with that process. We're in practice of bringing folks in to deposit their money into an escrow account and kind of walking through that process. The treasurer and I are still having some conversations with the attorney about that.
All right, thank you.
Councilman Nicholson?
For my colleagues' benefit, too, I want to update in our Community Development Subcommittee. Jack gave an update about how, and we all understand the equalization is done at the county for the city of Pontiac. The county was able to provide code enforcement a list of properties that are unhomesteaded. So you can pretty much assume that if they're unhomesteaded and paying that tax rate, that it's likely an investment property. going through that list and issuing those requests and warnings for them to come in and register their property, that huge influx of rental inspections that's been going on is likely a response to those letters. Not responding to that letter, then we continue the enforcement effort. So getting, starting and understanding where those homes are. I mean, we all know who's renting on our streets, of course, but being able to take a very tactical approach to that and be able to start that list and really get an ongoing response back and forth, that is well underway. And I know that I'm hearing from residents who, are saying, well, I never heard of this before. It doesn't matter. Ignorance is not, an excuse. This is the policy, but I would look to see, and I'm sure I'll send some of my things that I'm concerned about with our current policies related to rentals. But, ensuring that anybody who's registering a rental and already has enforcement activity is not able to do that. That only when that happens, that steeper fines for somebody who we're finding is now responding to a rental registration because of enforcement, maybe we can split up those categories and enforce a larger, more hefty response, especially now that the district court is able to really ensure that those fines are assigned to that parcel. So thank you for the work that's already started. I know there's more to go, and I'm looking forward to those ordinance updates.
If I could just say one more thing in response to Councilman. If I could just say one more thing in response to Councilman Carrington regarding court. I had a conversation this afternoon with Judge Walker. There might be some information that we are today's enforcements that are going to tickets are not we're not getting court dates till August. When we initially moved over to district court, we knew that there was going to be a lot of. So let me just go back to before we were taking things to district court, we weren't getting any court orders, none at all, unless it was a really excitable, talked about violation or incident that, at a property or something. Then it got attention, and those individual ones would be walked over to district court. As a common practice, we were using blight court, and that just didn't have any teeth to it. So we moved everything over to district court. When we first went over there, we knew the process was going to be new, that we were faced with some challenges, that we had to make sure that we did things consistently. So we worked with the court. 14 was a number of a docket. And although it doesn't seem like a lot, 14 cases in one day, when you are setting up a pretrial conference with a defendant who has been found guilty of a violation or is being charged with a violation of our ordinances, there are several methodical steps that you have to go through. You have to make sure they're given notice. They're entitled to their due process. We issue a ticket. The court then has to send a notice to them as well, an official notice from the court to come and appear in court. When they come to court, they're given the option of entering into a stipulated plea agreement. When they enter into those agreements, there are often times where the prosecutor will say, what's a reasonable amount of time to get this corrected? So that might extend things out 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And then we do a follow-up back in court. And I've said this before, and I want to just be really clear about it, and the judge and I talked about this at great length today. She's very open to increasing her docket. We may consider moving the docket from morning to afternoon, because we think we can get a lot of that pre-trial conference stuff done before we actually go on record with her. So we talked about that today. But one of the beauties of going through this process, although it feels like it's a longer process, it's really not a longer process, especially when we didn't have a process prior or a process that we use consistently, is that the results of these court orders are permanent. So it's something we can enforce on the day that she issues the order, and it's something that we can continue enforcing without having to go through the process all over again. The orders are written in such a way that they say that today's violations and any continued or future violations, we have the authority to go on the property and correct those. So,
Councilman Goodman's already got his hand for a second time, but Councilwoman James for a first time. Oh, and then Councilman Parker for a first time.
Yeah, I want to ask Jack, in terms of code enforcement, is there any sense of ranking when you guys write tickets in terms of just a general code enforcement? code enforcement issues that involve health and safety, and finally, code enforcement issues that are life-threatening. Is there any kind of, distinction between those? Because I would think that code enforcement issues that are life-threatening, where you've got people covering windows and doing things that in a fire would prevent those people from being able to get out of that house. So, there has to be some kind of, distinction. There's code enforcement issues and there are code enforcement issues. I'm wondering, does your system actually acknowledge that?
So are you asking, can we have the ability to prioritize one over the other?
Yes.
Absolutely. So I can call the clerk and say, we can't wait 2 weeks on this for a court date. We need to try to move this into a court date. But the defendant is still, by law, entitled to get service, and so the court still has to send their notice. So at the very best, they could send a notice and we potentially could have a court date within 7 days. If that's not going to work, if we feel the situation is egregious and dangerous, we also have the ability to go to the judge directly and ask for an administrative search warrant where we're granted permission to go into a property. And we've had a few of those so far where we've done that, where we've gotten calls from either the police or the fire department to say, hey, we're there on a domestic call or a rescue call, and we saw something very dangerous. In those situations, I've taken their reports, worked with our attorney, and we've gone right to the judge directly and asked for an administrative search warrant.
Okay.
That's when we have the ability to get into the property quicker and make an assessment of what's really going on there. So,
Councilman, anything further? Councilman Parker.
Thank you, Brother President, and I thank Councilman Goodman for bringing this further to our attention, because it's something that's been somewhat on our agenda for a while now, as we went through the law and courts and moving black court from that issue to putting it back into courts where it had a little bit more teeth. I know that most of this is a result of decades-long neglect. I ain't saying days, I'm saying decades-long neglect. We have health issues, we have mold issues, we have rodent issues, we have all kinds of issues that are taking place in properties that are being rented for an enormous amount of money. And there is certainly the intimidation process that's in play when people start complaining. So I do thank you. I know your team has been very busy trying to catch up with all of the stuff and following the legal process that is required, that everything is done decently and in order and will stay in place once it is done, is tremendous. So I do thank you for that, and I hope that we can get a ordinance passed that will have some teeth to it, that will place landlords on notice that they will be held accountable for what they're asking people to move into, that there will be a process by which, because I know some of them don't even want to allow inspections to go on in their property, and that's an issue. And that's certainly an issue with the health issues, because there are some people out there, as you well know, there are some significant health issues in some of these properties, and they need to be addressed, and they need to be addressed immediately.
yeah, and I'll say to Councilman Goodman's comment about how the the owner attempted to intimidate the resident, our inspector witnessed that. He actually came back immediately and talked to me about that. I'm anticipating that you're all going to pass this ordinance that we're going to bring in front of you, because I think we've worked really hard on it. The mayor started it, got me involved with it, then we got the law firm involved with it. But that absolutely will not be allowed. No intimidation, no threats. It's going to be built right into the ordinance that they're not allowed to do that, that they have to come into compliance with their property. They can't make comments. They can't, talk down to the tenants. In fact, they can't even entertain the idea of interrupting the lease if they have a lease with them until those things are brought into compliance. So,
Councilman Goodman.
So the follow-up thing, I appreciate everyone's agreement that this is an egregious situation. But, beyond this ordinance, which I would like to point out, just for posterity's sake, that this was the budget item that I brought forth originally, asking for an escrow account manager. This was the exact reason. And I'm happy that the ordinance, despite that not being voted up, is happening, because this is the exact reason as to why I brought it. And I think we should go even further, not outside of just that ordinance, really shoring up the tenants' rights and protections in the city. There should be more than one ordinance. We need to actually go through and fully figure out the holes and the gaps, because this cannot continue to happen. But with that, the question that I have for the administration and my colleagues is, what are we going to do to make sure that we're also protecting tenants in this process while we're figuring out these holes? Because again, the only reason why this is being brought to you as it is because I happened to rent as a resident while I was doing community work at the Warrant Clinic. And just so happened, I was a city council person who has a very strong feeling about housing. And just so happened, this person has access to a council person who is able to make this complaint publicly. So what are we going to do to also make sure that other people have the ability to make that complaint and have that access? But even more so, what are we going to do to protect these tenants? Because personally, minus them being put on blast, I have a very real concern that this tenant was threatened and said that essentially the landlord's going to get a 7-day eviction notice. So what do we have to ensure that this tenant will be housed after 7 days? Because that's unacceptable.
Well, so they can give a notice, but it's still going to have to go in front of court. So a lot of folks call me on a daily basis concerned about threats from their landlords saying that they're going to evict them. And I always remind them that you're entitled to your due process as well. So your landlord can file a writ. He can first post a writ to you, giving you notice. He's required to do that, or she's required to do that. They have to do that in order to even apply to the court for an eviction. They can't do it unless they prove that they gave notice ahead of time, a writ. And then a court date is assigned. So nothing, I always reassure people, don't pay attention to the writ. And Paul is actually here tonight, and I know we've had conversations in the past about doing some town halls regarding this so that folks understand. We've been putting some stuff together so folks understand what their rights are. We want to make sure that all of our residents know that they're in a place that they're entitled to be there and they're safe, and the city's. So there would be a process. So if someone is told that they're going to get they have to be out in 7 days, they need to know that they don't have to leave until they're actually told by a judge that they have to leave. So that's a longer process. So anybody can threaten with that, but legally they don't have to leave unless there's a court order.
And a follow-up to this, and this is just for the larger understanding of why this is such an issue. When you guys got your lease, was the information about like the essentially the tenant's rights that Michigan has, was that ever given to you with your lease? And so. And so my follow-up question, and the question that to my understanding, when a tenant signs a prospective lease, are they supposed to be provided with the information from the state as to what their rights are?
Somewhat, yes. There are terms that are required to be in the lease, and I will say I did receive a copy of this lease, and I did not see them in there. It doesn't specifically say all of the rights that are under landlord-tenant law, but there are specific things that do need to be in a lease.
And so to ask a follow-up, since you have a copy of the lease, how many issues, and you can kind of just be like a general idea of like, what are some issues that you would say that you see in the lease in front of us?
There are several. Obviously, I just looked at this lease. My biggest concern was when I reviewed it on the very first page, it states that if rent has not been received by 9 a.m. on the 1st of the month, then a 7-day notice will be posted, but rent's not due until the 11th of the month.
And I have a text message verification of him saying that he wouldn't have got a 7-day eviction.
So that's not how that works. and I can talk to you about this later. In fact, I think this is my last discussion item up, and then you and I can go talk in the hall. He would have to serve you with notice to quit, and then, as Manager McIntyre said, that would then be set for a date before the district court, and then at that time, you would have the opportunity to present your case to the district court, and then the district court judge would make a ruling on that. Obviously, I don't know all the facts here, but you and I can go talk in the hall, because there are concerns here.
Thank you. So with that, I kind of want to just wrap up the entirety of everything that I've been saying to just point out that this is not the exception. This is an example of what's happening in the city, and I need it to no longer be an example. So I look forward to everything that this council and administration accomplishes, especially with the help of me sending over ordinances, because I'm tired. I am beyond tired. And if I'm beyond tired, living in a marginally subpar apartment, I can only imagine how it is for people who are spending all of their money to provide housing for themselves, for their children, elderly people who have no choice but to go to be where they are. This needs to be solved. And I will personally leave it there for the evening, because I think I have belabored this point enough.
If I could just mention, in the recent newsletter that went out to all the homes, on page 2, there's a section at the bottom on the left that talks about how you can, it's a website, a practical guide for tenants and landlords. You can get to that by going to our website and looking under tenants and landlords.
Any further discussion on this item? I will give an excusing of the rules and yield the floor to the member of the public. You can take the microphone.
Hello, my name is Renee Smith. Me and my daughter live at 311 Midway Avenue, and this landlord, upon inspection of his store that he's working so diligently to open up, he, very admittedly did not tell the inspector that he was the owner of the property. When I had called and got hold of the fire marshal and Mr. Jack McIntyre, that I thank very, very much for his diligence, that day, the fire marshal, the housing inspector to come that day, and that when they saw that he put that metal mesh over our windows, then he said, if you don't like it, then you can move out. I said, you entrapped us in this house. I have a 12-year-old grandson that I adopted. That child, if there was to be a fire, we would not be able to escape. Then he said, in my daughter's room, that has 2 windows, because our bedrooms have 1, he was planning on putting that on her windows in the front of the house. When she came home from work and saw that, and that she called him, he told us point blank, if you don't, excuse my language, effing like it, then move out, because I can do what I want. The citation that he got for the home not being registered, $100 fine, he goes, what is that? That's nothing. For the citation, for the screen, the mesh over the windows, what's $100, $200? That's nothing. He laughed at me today. When the inspector came with him today, I met them at the door. I allowed them to come in the house. And he said, he walks to the dining room, he goes, she's just complaining about this light switch. I said, sir, you walk up to the light switch, you touch it, it shocks you. I said, it was electrocuting us. I have a 12-year-old grandson, I have an 8-year-old and a 6-year-old granddaughter. And I said, if one of us gets hurt, he goes, you're complaining too much. I said, really? And he goes, where's my money? I said, well, you supposedly showed up earlier, and I had texted him the other day telling him that my daughter's going to be at work. I'm going to have a 10:15 doctor's appointment. He can text and say, secure your dog, all this other stuff. That's an issue with him. He doesn't like the fact that we have a dog. He allowed us to have our dog, to bring our pit bull. He's like, I'm not going to ask you people, to get rid of him because he's part of your family. And now he says, you must get insurance on this dog. And I told him today in front of the inspector, I said, how can you get insurance, to cover the animal when the house isn't even registered as a rental? He goes, that I took care of a month ago. I said, we've been here since February. Then all the different things that he got wrote up about, the vehicle in the yard. The inspector said, you can't have a vehicle parked on the grass. Oh, I can move it. And I said, well, it's funny that vehicle's been parked there beside the garage since February and hasn't moved. Then with the garage, he has homeless people, that wander up and down the street. Oh, I'm a kind-hearted man. I'm a God-fearing man. I have just this big heart. I can't turn anybody away. He lets any person come stay in the garage. When Jack McIntyre and the fire marshal and the other inspector came and asked me his name, gave me his number, called him. Who's living in the garage? The fire marshal, let me tell you, was very upset, beating on the garage. I said, we don't have access to it. There's the two big doors, can't even open. There's one small door on the side that's locked, and he has a key to. When he was called and told that he needed to allow access for them to come in and inspect that, because he had a meter that he had put on the garage. He is stealing power from the church of all places across the street from us. Across the street, he installed a meter, and the inspectors took pictures of this. He is getting in trouble for this. He's laughing in our faces, saying, what's a $100 fine? That's nothing. What's another write-up? That's nothing. When I was complaining today, and I said, sir, to the inspector, I said, would you walk over here to the back of the house, please? There's a hole in the ground. And he's tried taking sleds, toys, covering this hole. And I said, well, when it rains really hard, this water goes in this hole, and it's going down to the basement. And the landlord says, Renee, you're just creating problems. I can't take this anymore. I'm not accepting your rent. Forget what I said earlier. I'm going to the court, and I'm having you out in 7 days. He said this in front of the inspector. The inspector says, okay. And I said, really? Because I complained about getting shocked. There's shingles laying in the yard. Just one window on the side of the house. When you put screens in windows, okay? This is, I write up that he's got for all kinds of windows in the house. My kitchen window does not have a screen. My bathroom window does not have a screen. One of my living room windows does not have a screen. I said, I'm getting bees coming in the house. My youngest granddaughter is highly allergic. I had to go buy spray to kill these bees and wasps. I just got stung the other day. Sitting out there in a pool that I had bought, and the inspector said today, he goes, I do have a concern about the pool. He says, with you having a pool, and that the yard needs to be, closed off, gates. And I said, that falls on the landlord, sir, because a whole entire yard, okay, a good acre yard, nice sized yard, completely fenced in, no gate across the driveway. He said, that's not on you, sweetie. I said, thank you very much. And he's continued to write him up. Went down to the basement, he was writing him up. He said, whose stuff is along this back wall? I said, that would be his. His exact words were, this is his, S-H-I-T? See, yes, it is. He looked at me like he wanted to choke me. He was so mad. He was getting write-ups because there's pipes, metal stuff, that you walk through, you're hitting your head on. The inspector was walking and ducking, doing this. He said, this is a fire hazard, this is a fire hazard, this is a fire hazard. And 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 his comeback was, "I'm sick of you. You're complaining about everything." I said, "Well, on June 1st, and me and my daughter went over to his store, paid him in cash. I said, I want the paper receipts. You have never given us paper receipts." I said, "I demand them." I sent texts. I said, "Texts can be deleted, electronics go down. I want paper. Every penny I paid you, you know how you get paid. Me and my grandson get Social Security. You know where the money comes from. I want paper trails." And oh, yeah. Oh, I'm just going to deal with Kristen. I don't want to deal with you. I just want to deal with Kristen. I said, "Got a new lease." Because when I saw that lease where it says Kristen Smith, that the lease is in Kristen Smith's name, that Renee Smith and Antonio Smith just reside there. I said, "No, I want this changed. It's for Kristen and Renee." Still to date, he hasn't done that. Still to date, he has not provided one paper receipt for anything. Earlier today, it was, "When are you going to have my money?" $1,300. Then he's on us about $150. $150 is for his friend of 20-plus years, his little drunk friend, and that he says he's a certified, registered electrician. That we had to wait from February until March or April before, the washer and dryer that I have could get hooked up. He wants me to pay for the electrical way. Because I told him, I said, I can sell this dryer and buy one off of, off a marketplace for $50.
Ma'am, for the sake of time, I am going to have to move on.
Okay. I'm really sorry. There's just so many concerns. And when he threatened, and then he had the police show up today to come in and do that switch, that was just it. That was just it. When he's saying a 7-day, notice, something's got to be done. Please. Thank you.
Any further discussion? No, I gave a courtesy for the subject matter that the discussion was on, since they are the tenants. Any further city council discussion on this discussion topic? Councilman Nicholson?
I just want to ensure, and Jackie may know the answer to this, when a landlord, when we get that on the docket, that either the court, if it's not a matter of tenancy, are we able to notify the tenants so they can potentially come and speak on the behalf?
Yeah,
Okay.
I have tenants that log in all the time.
Okay, great. I just wanted to make sure that the judge was able to get that information. And I just want to say, too, if she's watching, Judge Walker holding this docket on her docket is tremendous, that it's not given to a visiting judge, that there's, consistency, and that the judge, that hears these cases has the full order of the court.
So, yeah, we talked about that today. She has no intentions of moving it anywhere else. She wants to continue to be the primary judge on our cases. And then let me just, if I can real quick, this is why we're bringing this ordinance in front of you. Hopefully we'll be back in front of you on this in 2 weeks, I think. And this is the best example right here of why this is going to be beneficial to the residents of our city.
Any further discussion? With that, we are at communications from the City Council. You can see a few dozen items of upcoming activities in our community. You can find that on the City Council's printed agenda or online with the posted agenda. For the sake of time, I'm just going to point out that next week, it's the 40th anniversary of the Pontiac Fiero, that automobile that was made here in Pontiac. And City Council previously voted to declare July 13th Fiero Day. So please come and join the festivities throughout the July 12th through 16th, but specifically at 1 o'clock outside the Crowfoot Ballroom in downtown Pontiac. The community is invited to help kick off Fiero Day as part of those celebrations. With that, Mayor's Office communications, you can see them written on the hard copy agenda or accessed online. The most important and time sensitive is that the Music in the Park series continues. The next offering being July 13th, Thursday to July 13th at North Kiwanis Park. And that there's a City of Pontiac Family Fun Day, July 15th, 2023, held at Aaron Perry Park. I believe that time is 5 to 10 p.m. Does that sound right? Okay, and at Aaron Perry Park, July 15th, Saturday, July 15th. We'll emphasize that at next City Council meeting as well. It is worth noting it's a Thursday. We shifted the meeting because of the 4th of July holiday. I hope everyone had a safe and pleasant Independence Day celebration. We will return and resume our normal Tuesday evening at 6 p.m. starting next week and continuing for a long time. I can't remember what the next holiday might be. It might be, I don't think that'll mess with our meetings. Maybe Election Day in November. We might have to change that date now that we have an election in November for the city. Yeah. All right. So with that, we are at closing comments. Deputy Mayor Stevens.
Thank you, Council President. The first closing comment that I have is to read something about Biddy basketball. So Biddy, B-I-D-D-Y, basketball, youth basketball, or mini basketball, also spelled B-I-T-T-Y, basketball, is a type of basketball game that is played by youths. The game is popular internationally, and tournaments are held in places such as the United States, Puerto Rico, and other countries. The game is played by boys and girls, and unisex teams may be formed. History. The competition is estimated to have first been created during either 1950 or 1951 by American sports enthusiast Jay Archer of Scranton, Pennsylvania. I'll stop there and just say that Biddy basketball is not a trademarked or created event that is owned by one individual. It is like saying T-ball or Pee-wee or Little League. And with that, I have nothing else to say. Thank you.
Clerk Doyle, any closing comments?
Yes, Mr. President. I just want to express condolences to the Deputy City Clerk, Sheila Grandison, on the loss of her father. Please keep her in your prayers.
Oh, my goodness. Thank you for sharing that. Councilman Nicholson.
I want to say thank you, Deputy Mayor, for addressing that. However, I disagree. Whether or not it's trademarked, if there's community confusion around someone coming into something as trivial as a community rec course, having ran the community ed department at the Birmingham Community House for 4 years, we changed the names all the time if there was people who were confused and signed up for the wrong thing. They get the wrong schedule, they make the wrong family choices, we end up having to refund them for whatever fees. It's just not worth the confusion, and we can change the name to whatever we want, but I really think that we should probably look into that. It's just not worth the struggle. Beyond that, want to remind District 2 residents that we do not have District 2 meetings in the next 2 months. They do take a break in the summertime. They'll come back in September. And I also want to thank the council president for coordinating a fantastic mural for the Pioneer Highlands neighborhood. It's gorgeous, it's finished, and Mona Hofmeister posted it today, and everybody loved it. So if you drive down Telegraph, it's at Telegraph and Hazel. It was an old white retaining wall, and it was just in, sort of bad condition. It's now got beautiful flowers with a nice welcome sign on the corner, and it complements beautifully the Thrifty Florist mural on the opposite side of the street. So thank you for finding that artist and helping to get that coordinated.
Well, thank you to Councilman Nicholson for having it be one of your district projects for District 2, and it'll look so much better when we have fresh cement,
yes,
a smooth road when Hazel is repaved this year, too.
Yes. And on that note, the final thing that I'll say for my updates is knowing how the contracting process has worked for just Hazel Street. and us having all these ARP dollars that are allocated towards some larger contractor-driven projects, especially in the parks, I'm becoming more and more nervous about trying to get those things going as soon as possible so we don't miss deadlines on spending. The Hazel Street project now has been 7 months past due. And we just heard at our community update meeting that the DPW director anticipates it being done at the end of the year. So that will put us another 6 months ahead. So we'll be over a year. We've passed it now to 2 different budget years. So I now understand there's contractor issues, but that's why I'm getting more and more nervous about some of these larger, big ticket dollars that we have limited time for spending to get those underway. So when there are these inevitable setbacks, that we can still be within time constraints. I'd hate to send that money back.
Councilman Goodman.
I think a majority of what I've had to say has been said tonight. We have a problem with negligent landlords and slumlords in the city. We have a problem with affordable housing in the city. None of these things are new to anyone who's been paying attention. I very much hope that this purposely drawn out discussion item to fully paint the picture of what one resident is dealing with in the city causes those with power to make some decisions. But also, I'm taking this moment to explicitly say that if you are a tenant in the city of Pontiac and you are having issues with your property, I will happily stop by and see what your landlord is doing to you. Because as a person who has dealt with these things on my own, I have zero tolerance for it. Shelter is one of the most important things to being able to live. As a person who spent 20 years of, well, almost 20 years of my life in Section 8 housing, having to deal with less than ideal situations, having lived in an apartment where I spent more than half of my income every month to have, again, less than standard living conditions. The city needs to be doing everything it can to protect the tenants who live here. I cannot stress that enough, because even in this circumstance, the fact that a resident was getting electrocuted for touching a switch in their house, imagine if that person had any type of medical equipment inside of their body. Imagine if a child touched that and there was enough current going through that. What would we do? I mean, after having what happened on St. Clair Street, immediately upon us taking office, where the halfway house burnt down and people died, we cannot play games at this point. I have tried for a while to do the kind thing of moving in good faith and having these discussions, but I am very much at the point, and I truly would hope that many of you are also at the point that at this point, either you should be a good housing provider or one that is afraid of the consequences of your actions. Because what I will not continue to allow to happen in the city is people to be afraid to live at home, people who are spending extravagant amount of money just simply to have a roof over their head and that roof leaks. I will not continue to do it. So I very much encourage my colleagues to heed the words of myself, of the residents who came. And again, I heavily encourage anyone who's dealing with issues regarding these housing issues. I may be creating a lot of extra work for myself, but I very much take these things seriously, and in trying to solve this issue, I do want to hear the experiences that are obviously separate of mine. So please give me a call. My city number, which is 248-758-3015. That is the number for my council office phone. So any District 3 residents who also need that, please give me a call. But again, it's 248-758-3015. And with that, good night.
Councilman William Parker, Jr., District 5.
Thank you, Brother President. I don't have much to say. I just want to remind everybody that the District 5 CDC meeting will be July 13th at 6 p.m. in the Lions Den Conference Room and at City Hall. Also want to remind everybody that I've been getting some calls that people say that they don't know how to reach me. Well, the way you reach me truly is this. You can call City Hall, 248-758-3019. You can also call my other number, which is 248-904-7178. I usually respond to those within 24 hours. Or if you really want to find me, you can come by New Springfield Missionary Baptist Church. I am definitely there every Wednesday and every Sunday, and you can come by and we can talk after service. So if you're looking to reach for me, and I'm also people telling me that you don't know who your councilman is. It's the person. It's either the person you voted for or the person you didn't. Either way, you should know who that is. I'm not trying to be facetious in saying that, but really some people need to just stop all of the foolishness that they're doing and recognize that there are people here that are trying to help this city, and some of the foolishness that goes on in this city needs to stop. And with that, I say good afternoon.
All right, Councilwoman Kathleen W. James, District 4.
Thank you. Excuse me. I've got a number of announcements tonight. First of all, we still have a few openings left. As you know, we are hiring students for the Junior Park Ranger Program. This is a grant that was received by Friends of Pontiac Parks and the Pontiac Community Foundation. We have hired the supervisors, but we have openings for Junior Park Rangers. The age is, we're looking for 16 through 19. So if you have teens in your family who are interested in working the remainder of the summer, I think the program goes from this week, it started this week, and it goes to August the 18th. So if you have teens who are interested, please have them call me at 248-425-4663. Don't have to have any experience, just give us a call. Also, in regards to the comments that Mr. Kraft made, I have to agree with Councilman Nicholson that this probably is confusion that we don't really need to have in the city. Mr. Kraft has been working, with youth in this city for quite a while, and I'm not sure whether or not he has assumed name papers on the biddy, the name of his, the craft, however he called it. I'm not sure if he has the assumed name papers, but regardless, I think it would be appropriate for us to avoid that kind of confusion. So I would have to agree with him that we do need to look at that, and we need to make whatever corrections we need to make so that we can keep this one community and one family. I want to, the next district council meeting is July the 27th at 6 p.m. at the New Mount Moriah International Church. Our guest for that night will be our illustrious City Clerk, Mr. Doyle. He'll be there to talk about a number of issues with the recreational marijuana, as well as just to answer your questions. So he will be our guest on July 27th, and we want to invite the public out. Finally, I would like to thank Oakland County Sheriff Officer Smith, who came to my assistance on Monday when I ran out of gas and had to find a gas can or call someone to help me so that we could go to the gas station and buy gas. He stopped by. I actually had to get out of the car because I did not want to sit in the car, even though it was 90+ degrees. It just was not a safe place to be sitting in a car. And so I got out, but the sheriff did stop and offered to help, and he was just really, really nice. So I appreciate the fact that we've got Oakland County sheriffs in the city who are just very gracious to the seniors. So I want to shout out to Officer Smith of the Oakland County Sheriff for giving me that assistance. And that's all I've got. Thank you.
All right. Good evening. I'm Mike McGinnis, representing District 7 on the east side. We already marked the very big funding development of the Martin Luther King Boulevard Bridge demolition and replacement. So that'll be a long time process. It won't be a snap of the fingers. But that's a really big deal because the east side has been especially paralyzed by that thoroughfare being closed in addition to the Woodward and South Boulevard intensity. I'm grateful that there's a little bit of opening now with Woodward and South Boulevard, and I look forward to a long-term solution that'll work for the east side. Want to remind our neighbors, please share your Pride and Beautification nominations so that way we can celebrate those who go above and beyond. Many beautiful homes, a lot of pride in their homes, and we want to celebrate them so that way we don't want anyone to be overlooked. Finally, the next District 7 meeting is Monday, July 10th, this coming Monday at 7 p.m. We meet at Prospect Missionary Baptist Church, 351 Prospect Street, at the corner of Prospect and Sanford. There will be pizza. There will be soda or pop. There will be chips, and there will be cookies, and more importantly, there will be neighbors coming together to make a positive difference. So hopefully that's what sells it for you, but if not, come and get some hot and ready. All right, with that, happy Independence Day, one and all. Hope you are safe and well.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Support.
Moved by Councilman Nicholson, seconded by Councilman Goodman, that we adjourn this evening's meeting. Hearing no discussion, roll call, Clerk Doyle.
Goodman,
Yes.
James,
Yes?
McGinnis,
Yes.
Nicholson.
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
5 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. We stand adjourned at 8:07.